Blessed be everyone. Merry meet. Welcome to another YouTube live stream on Mystery Witch School. My name is Sandra, and today we are going to talk about how to start your witchcraft practice or deepen your practice without you having to feel confused or overwhelmed. So, we're going to cover some simple steps to build your confidence, and I'm going to be sharing some information about my own journey and how come up against some of these hurdles myself and what I've done about them. And how I started my practice prior to the internet when there was less information around, although probably much less confusing because of that as well. So I'm going to take a minute or two to let people come and join us on the live chat as well. So, for those of you who are watching the replay, I will say welcome to you watching the replay. Remember, there is also super thanks there. So, if you're wanting to do super thanks watching the replay, you can do that through Google. And as we're waiting for people to join the live stream, which can take a while because YouTube gets the notifications out, people have to see them, they have to be on YouTube. I want to ask you a question for those of you who are watching now and for those of you who are also watching the replay. And let me know in the comments or let me know in the chat. How long have you been practicing the craft? Or if you're just starting out, what's one thing that you're the most curious about when it comes to practicing the craft? Or if you're just wanting to deepen your practice because you've been practicing for a while and maybe you're feeling it's getting a little stale, or you feel you just need that extra bit of connection, something's still not quite there for you, then what is that just doesn't feel there? What more do you feel that you need to know? So drop a comment in the chat or drop it in the comments field below this video if you're watching the replay, because I'm really curious about where people are at with things. Okay, hello, LO. Hi, Sandra. Hello, LO. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. So I know that we're just getting started, but as you know, the beginning of a live stream can feel like waiting for guests to show up to a party. So that's kind of what it feels like now. But I am just going to go straight into it. But before we do dive into the comment, I want to let you know that I have a free resource for those of you who are new to witchcraft, who are just starting out with your practice. It will help you understand how you can learn the craft in a way that makes it more doable for you over a period of around about a year. So it's called How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. If you're on the replay, the link's in the description field below the video, and I will pop it in the chat as well for those of you who are in the chat. It's another video, but it's a longer video. It goes for about 40 minutes, and it is a masterclass. So I'm going to be going right from the beginning of things, right from the beginning of your first month learning witchcraft or teaching yourself witchcraft, what to look for, what to study, what to learn, and then what to do in the next month, and so on and so on. So it just helps you pace yourself along the way. Okay, L.O. I just can't seem to get it together to practice. I'm not sure why. A lot of people have that problem. So you're not the only one that has that problem. So it's probably the most common problem, is just getting yourself to make time for you to practice and to organize yourself to practice. Okay, so now that we're getting more settled in, let's get started. So I know that many of you are here because you might be feeling a bit lost or overwhelmed when it comes to your witchcraft practice, whether that's starting it, whether that's maintaining it or deepening it. You might be unsure where to begin, uh, what tools to use, and how to be confident in what it is that you're doing. So at the end of this presentation or this video, I'm also going to go through some common questions that people ask as well. So hang around for the Q&A at the end. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat if you're live, or if you're watching the replay, to pop them in the comments field and I'll answer them when I get to reading the comments. But we are going to talk about getting started today. I'm going to share some really simple things that you can do to get started. and you're going to feel like you've got something that you can do to take with you in your first steps to bringing this practice more into your life. Because that's the whole point of me being here. The point of Mystery Witch School is to help you witches who are struggling to get started in your craft, or you might be struggling to deepen your practice, to confidently integrate magic and witchcraft into your life on a daily basis so that you can feel the joy, the peace, and the connection that and empowerment that this kind of practice does bring. So, the first thing I want to talk about is understanding your why. And this it can go a long way to helping you get it together. Understand what it is that's drawn you to the craft in the first place. Hi, T Shields. Hi, Moira. How are you? Do you use a compass to know where north, south, east, and west are directionally when setting up an altar? Yes, I use a compass to orientate myself for that because it does certainly help to know where north, south, east, and west are. You can, of course, go by the sun as well, like the ancients did, for sure. But I do like to use a compass when I'm not sure where space is. If it's a new place or if I'm out in nature somewhere, it might be midday, for example, and so the sun's up above. So it can be hard sometimes to know exactly where they are. So know your why. What is it that's drawn you to the craft? Why do you want to practice witchcraft? What draws you to it? Is it the magic? Is it the working with the herbs and the crystals and making things and creating spells? Is it connection to nature? Is it a sense of coming home to something that's more natural to you, a kind of a way of connecting to spirit that feels more real, that feels more grounded, that feels more free than perhaps a religion or something that you grew up with? What is it that attracts you to the craft in the first place? Because when you can identify what it is that's brought you here, it can help you become more focused and more grounded in your practice because it gives you a reason for doing it. It gives you a reason for turning up every day to do a daily practice. It gives you a reason to turn up and do your spell work, to learn about the craft, to get more knowledge and to practice because the craft is a practice. It's a craft. Which craft? Craft is a practical thing. And a practical thing is something you do. It's not something you just read about. It's not something you intellectualize about. It's something you actually do. So it should be something that's in your life on a doing basis that brings joy to your life, that brings peace to your life, that just brings more of a sense of connectedness and groundedness and authenticity into your life. So that's really what the craft can do when you learn how to approach it in a way that is going to help you learn more about who you are and what you are on a spiritual level. So let me know either in the comments or in the chat what your why is that's brought you here. Now, that might change. Your why now might not end up being the why 10 years from now. It certainly may change. But yeah, let me know what your why is. So for me, when I first started the craft, my why was it was to connect with that feeling of a spiritual home because when I first came across modern witchcraft, I was 14. So I was really just interested in it from a curiosity perspective. It wasn't something I wanted to practice back then. But when I came to it later, when I was around 21, 22, it sort of hit me in the face because my sister and I had gone to a house that was to belong to a person who was a friend of my mother's, and she had this beautiful carving of a woman sitting on top of a cauldron on the veranda. And that seeing that just instantly reminded me of the book that I had read back when I was 14. And that was called Witchcraft and the Sixth Sense by Justine Summers, who was a student of Cochrane. And it was an instant, I want to know more about witchcraft now. And the feeling, all I could say is the feeling in that moment was a feeling of home. To me, I was looking for home. And the craft seemed to help me with that. Second to that, it was the magic, the ability to be able to create your life the way that you want to have more of an influence over life than just being a jellyfish being tossed around in the ocean tide and not really having any say over which direction it goes in. I liked the magic aspect. I was attracted to that. And I also loved the aspect of it balancing the masculine and feminine energy and being able to connect to the divine feminine because I'd come from a Catholic upbringing. And although Mary is a part of Catholicism, she's sort of second to God and Jesus and that in that cosmology. And I really like the fact that the goddess was revered um, in such a wonderful way in the craft compared to all of the patriarchal experiences I'd had growing up in the Catholic religion, going to Catholic churches, being in Catholic schools, having that experience with a more patriarchal focused religion. And so I really did embrace the divine feminine. And at that time, that was important to me because I needed that in my life and to balance out what I'd got from Catholicism. So my first why was really I just want to come home to something that's spiritual that really, really feels grounded and nurturing and positive about life, not negative about life. A spirituality that's not telling you you're a bad person and that you were born with original sin and all of that sort of stuff. That is very positive and also has that practical aspect that we can co-create with the universe, that we work with the deity, that we work with the divine, that we're not um, under this sort of subjugation to this higher thing, that we are part of it and we can work with it. And that's what really attracted me to the craft. But I wasn't aware of that at that time. Looking back now, what keeps me attracted to the craft, what my why is now, is that connection to spirit and how that informs my life when things happen in life. Then when you have that spiritual connection, it's much easier to navigate your way through difficult times, times of death, times of struggle, all of the changes that we experience throughout our lives, whether that's en masse in the political climates that change, whether that's just interrelationships with other people, working, all of these things. When you have a strong spiritual connection to who you truly are and to the divine, and you can navigate these difficulties so much easier. So I feel that my why now is simply connecting to that source energy, that divine energy, and being able to work with all of the different gods and goddesses and even angels out there to be able to navigate through this terrain. So that's my why now. So I'm curious too that if you have been in the craft for a while, if you have a think back to what your why was when you first came into it to compared to what it is now, what has anything changed? Has anything been added to that? But it's really important to know what is your why? Why are you here? So, new to your channel, hi, Chris, USA. We'll have to watch later, but wanted to say you have helped me so much. I can't wait to start your class in a couple of months. Awesome. I don't know if you're still watching because it seems like you might be off going somewhere and then watching the replay, but yeah, welcome. Oh, wow. It's all of the above for me. Yes, I think a lot of you will probably resonate with that, particularly if you've been in the craft for a couple of years or even longer. Hi, Shannon. How are you? So once you've understood your why and you know what you've really looked into it. And another reason for understanding your why is because it's going to create an emotion in you. You're going to have a feeling from thinking about your why. You're going to have an emotional reaction, right? And that's going to help motivate you to do things. It's going to help motivate you to turn up for yourself and do the practices and learn the craft a bit. So when you are feeling a bit like, I can't get myself motivated, I can't get myself organized, think of your why. Write it down somewhere, go back and read it. You could put it in your book of shadows, you could put it in your journal, depending on how you like to float your boat when it comes to separating journals and books of shadows. But Write it down somewhere, and when you're feeling like things are getting too difficult for you in the craft, you're getting too confused, you're not feeling confident anymore, just go back and look at your why, and then that will give you the motivation to continue. Okay. Ah, hi, Private. I'm from Tamborine Mountain in Queensland. Where are you based? I'm in Redcliffe. Tamborine is absolutely gorgeous. I love Mount Tamborine. Beautiful, beautiful place to live. Shannon says, I just get frustrated when I want to practice. I want to practice too many people in my house. Yeah, that can be a problem when you've got a lot of people around, distraction, and maybe it's difficult sometimes to get away to go somewhere private to practice as well. Uh, I guess that takes a bit of thinking about how to navigate that. Can you do you is there a room you can go and lock yourself in? Do you need to go outside the home to do some practice, like go for a walk or go somewhere to a park or something and do something? Uh, what options have you got in regards to where you can go and what you can do? So the next thing is about starting small. So once you know your why, start small and build your daily practice. And even if you've been doing this for years and you're wanting to deepen your practice, start small in deepening your practice as well. Go back over the basics and go back over a daily practice that you may have started out with and just do that again and feel into how you want it, how you could deepen that practice, what you could add to that and change to that to deepen your practice. Now, I do have a short course called The Ultimate Guide to Starting a Wiccan Practice that works, that guides you through a daily practice over a 5-day period. And that is also available on my website, mysterywitchschool.com. You can also find it on my YouTube channel in the comments field underneath the video as well. And that does guide you through 5 days of setting up your daily practice. So you only have to do one thing a day over that 5 days. And by the end of that 5 days, you have a simple daily practice that you can then change and add to as you progress through the craft, but it just gives you that foundation. And what a daily practice does is it just helps you get consistent in turning up for yourself every day. And when you're turning up for yourself every day and you're connecting to the god and goddess every day, or even if it's just a god or a goddess every day, it helps you also work with your energy field as well. So you want to make sure that you're doing some kind of energy work on a daily basis, even if that's just creating a circle of light around you, doing some meditation on a daily basis, even if it's just 5 minutes of meditation, and giving some kind of gratitude for the things that you're grateful for in your life. And they can be the same things every day. Try to add different things every day if you can. And that's like the offering. So I always do an offering at the end of a ritual. And with the daily practice, I always give an offering as well. And the offering could just be water, it could be milk, it could be incense, it could be oils that you put on your skin. I love offering oils. It's a way of tapping into this sense of gratitude and thanks to the god and goddess or whatever spirits you might be working with, or just being just the universe in general. It just taps you into that sense of you're not alone, and you're giving thanks for any help and assistance that you're getting from spirit. And so just those simple practices, creating that sacred space with the circle of light, calling in the god and goddess to just be with you in your practice, doing some meditation. If there's something you really feel you need to achieve that day, doing a candle lighting intention, so not necessarily doing a full blown spell, but just setting an intention for the day. How do you want your day to be? You can just spend a minute visualizing your day and feeling into how you'd like your day to flow. If there's anything you've got to get done that day, just imagining that how you feel when you've finished getting that done, and that you successfully got it done. You can do that in your daily practice, and then giving offerings can just be really simple as those things. And what that does is it gives you that consistency, and you don't have to worry about the complexity because you're doing something that's sort of simple on a daily basis. And it only needs to be for maybe 10 minutes a day. You don't need to go any longer than 10 minutes a day in a daily practice. It's starting small, it's starting with things that are really simple, but all of those practices are magical witchcraft practices, and they are part of having a magical life. And that's what you're trying to build. You're trying to build the experience of connecting on a daily basis. Even just lighting a candle and focusing on an intention for the day is a spiritual practice. It's a magical practice. You're doing magic, you're connecting to your higher self, you're connecting to spirit on a daily basis. It gives you that sense of connection. Morning meditation can give you that sense of connection. Gratitude journaling, either in the morning or before you go to bed, gives you that sense of connection and turning up for yourself. So when I first started the craft, I didn't have a daily practice. No one was teaching daily practices back in the day, and this is going back to the early 1990s. There wasn't really daily practices. When I joined the coven, our daily practice was what was called grounding, and what that was working with the chakras and turning the chakras on and like turning the lights off and turning the lights on, or turning the lights on and turning the lights off on the chakras. So it's about balancing and centering the chakras, and that was the daily practice. There wasn't anything necessarily of calling in the god and goddess every day and working in that sense of connection. We only did that when we were doing spell work or when we were doing rituals like sabbats and things. So the daily practice that I was taught back then was simply a chakra balancing practice, which is a great practice to do on a daily basis. So something you could incorporate into your daily practice for sure. But I still felt disconnected from my higher self and from spirit just doing that chakra practice. I felt that I needed more than that. And when I started to work with other traditions like Buddhism, for example, they have a lot of practices and they do work with goddesses, and they do practices with deity in Tibetan Buddhism anyway. They do practices with deity every day. So I learned from different cultures how they work with deity and brought that into their life on a daily basis. Same with Hinduism. There's those practices there, and that gave me more of a sense of connection when I started working like that. And as part of meditation, being in nature to meditate, whether it's out in the garden or whether it's down at the beach or in a park or somewhere, looking out at nature and just seeing that as part of yourself, that you're part of that, that this, what you're seeing and experiencing is part of your perception of what you're seeing and experiencing, that it's all energy, it's all vibration, and looking at the world that way rather than the way that we've been acclimatized to looking at the world. And these things just help you connect more to who you are. So that's that's what's worked for me. Having that connection to nature, spirit on a daily basis, and the meditation and gratitude is what has helped my practice personally feel more connected than just doing chakra work or just meditation. So there's some things you might want to try there. And I do have that How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice mini course as well. Now, the third thing is aligning your practice with your life, and it has to be your life. So, what might work for one person may not work for you. So, it's about learning, understanding your life and what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you in your lifestyle. Because in the modern times, we all live very, very different lives, and times are changing really, really fast. So, our lives and our routines are changing as well, and we have to fit the practice. Um, Unfortunately, we kinda gotta fit the practice in with some of those things. It'd be nice to fit life in with the practice, but we have to learn how to put the practice into our lives. So that's the next thing to think about. If you wanna do a daily practice, how does this feature into your life on a daily basis? How are you going to do it? Okay. I'm just gonna go back to the comments. Uh, Momotsuki. Oh, I could be wrong, but sounds like she's from Australia. Yes, Tamborine Mountain is in Australia. Yes, and so is Redcliffe, and I have an Australian accent because I'm Australian. Hi, Maura. Can tarot be part of daily practice? Absolutely. Absolutely. Tarot can certainly be part of daily practice. I've often used it in my daily practice. I don't use it every day, but some days I use it and I might use it consistently for a week or two, and then I might not use it. It just depends what's going on in my day, really, and whether I use it all the time. But certainly use your tarot every day. It's a great way to connect with your intuition on a daily basis. It's a great way to connect with the cards, particularly if you're learning the cards or you're wanting to get better at reading the cards. Yeah, beautiful practice, tarot. Pull a card every morning, Shannon. Yep. Perhaps setting intention when you make your morning coffee or cup of tea. Yes, doing that and putting that intention into your coffee or into your tea. I've done I've done a video recently about that, but I can't remember if it's come out yet. But it's coming if it hasn't come out yet. My daily practice, hi Krishna. My daily practice at the moment is quite extensive, but when I get more busy, the condensed version. Okay. So it's quite flexible. Yes, I do too. I have practice that sometimes is longer, sometimes it's shorter, depending on what the day is like. So if you can be flexible with your practice, you could have a longer meditation period, for example, and make that longer, or you can shorten the meditation period. Okay. Hi, Kyle. Oh, hi, Kyle. Haven't heard from you for a long time. Hope it's all good where you are. So align it with your life, okay? Make it personal. Your practice should be something that complements your life, what feels natural to you, what feels like home to you, not something you have to fit in around everything else. So it can include using magic in your everyday life, like having a cup of tea and chanting your cup of tea is a practice. Blessing your food, giving gratitude for your food is a practice. If you catch a train or a bus, you can use that time to read and learn. You can use that time to meditate. So incorporating your practice into your life at all of these moments of opportunities. I know witches who the only place in the house they can get private to themselves is actually in their bathroom. And so they've actually got a little altar set up in the bathroom to do their practice because it's the only time they can have to themselves because they've got large families. So if the bathroom is the only place you can be by yourself, then you could set up a little altar or something, even a small thing, something in the bathroom that connects you to your spirit. It could just be an ornament in there. It could be something you put on the wall in there that's not subject to being destroyed by moisture, and having that there, and that could be your sacred space. Whatever you need to do that. And I know witches who've had to do that because it's the only place they've been able to go in their home that is sort of where they can be private and by themselves is in the bathroom. So you could do that. Set intentions each day. It could be connecting also that intention with the phase of the moon that we're in at that particular time, the seasons of the year. Where are you now in the seasons of the year? Where I am, we are well and truly into autumn. Winter is just around the corner for us here in the Southern Hemisphere. And here, nature is very different in winter because we don't really get a winter here. It's a beautiful time to go outside. The sun isn't as strong as it normally is. You don't have to worry so much about the UV. The water is very, very calm and very crystal clear. It's a beautiful time to be at the beach where I live. And this is the time when I love going out in and meditating out there in the middle of the day, even just having that warmth of the sunlight and just the calmness of everything this time of the year. So, what's the seasons doing around you? How do they change? How do you change? Maybe your practice has to change according to the seasons. You might have to get up later as the year wanes towards winter. You might find that you're someone who prefers to get up with the sun. And so, the sun's getting up later in winter. So maybe you are too. How does that change things for you? What do you have to do to your practice to modify the seasons? And do you have different colored candles for the different seasons? So this is something I don't do at the moment, but certainly something that I've done in the past to reconnect me to the craft was to have altar cloths and candles that are in the color of that season. So if it was Yule, for example, right on Yule, the winter solstice, I would use a purple candle and have a purple cloth because for me, Yule is the color is purple, is one of the colors of Yule. And so for the next 6 weeks until the next Sabbath, which is Imbolc, I would be using the purple colors. So the candle, the altar candle is purple and the purple altar cloth, and then it would change at Imbolc to brown. And then when spring came along, it would be a light green, and then it would go to dark green for Beltane, and then for summer I would use white, and then Lunasa would be yellow, and Marbon would be red, and Samhain orange. So I just changed the colours to suit the season, the Sabbath season. So rather than the Sabbath just being that 1 or 2 days, it's sort of the energy's going out for that whole 6-week period until the next Sabbath. So I would feel into things there. So work with the seasons when it comes to setting up your practice, and how does that change your practice? Okay, I'm going to go back to the comments. Um, okay, been busy with life. Says, okay, Kyle. Yep, we've all been busy with life. Yes, life's busy, isn't it? I have okay, Shannon, you have to go, but definitely we'll watch the replay. Awesome. Thank you for coming along, Shannon. Okay, so number 4 is letting go of perfection and just embracing your journey. Okay, uh, you don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to do everything right. Okay, what is right? Focus on how you're progressing, how you're feeling in your practice. It doesn't have to be perfection to the book, because there's lots of different ways of practicing the craft. There's lots of different traditions in the craft. There's lots of different Wiccan traditions out there now. It's not just one thing. Everything is changing and everything is moving, and it's going with the movement and the changes, keeping the traditions that feel right to you, keeping the traditions that are helpful to you, but also moving with the change of the times and our understanding of our connection to the universe as well. You don't have to get it all right. Okay. Perfectionism is probably one of the main things that causes people to procrastinate when it comes to starting a practice. Is you feel, what if I do it wrong? And yes, sometimes you can get things wrong. Obviously, in a ritual, you can spill wax all over your altar. You can set your altar cloth on fire. You can do all of these things in rituals. It happens. Okay. It happens to the best of us. Uh, but that's life too. Life happens. And life happens in a ritual too. Life also happens when you're doing spells. So everything is not going to be perfect, and you're not necessarily going to get it right all of the time. You may forget things. So you may be coming and doing a spell, you set up your circle, and you realize you've forgotten something, and you have to go outside the circle and get that thing and bring it back. And that can help, sometimes make the whole change the atmosphere, because you're interrupting the flow of energy, and then you've got to interrupt it to go out, and then you've got to try and build that sense of connection with what you're doing again. It happens, right? It happens. I've certainly had that happen to me. I've had things set up and then created the circle and then looked and what I've forgotten something. So I've had to go open up the circle, go back out, come back in and close the circle, and, try and get back into focus again. If things like that happen, just take an extra moment to focus when you come back to what it is that you're doing. Just come back to focusing on what you're doing. If you're doing a ritual and you've done one bit before the bit you were supposed to do, so you've got an order of doing your spells, and the spell's not in order because you've somehow jumped it and you realize you've jumped the gun there. That's okay. You can either start again or just be creative in how you make the spell flow. It might not be necessary to do the first thing first and the second thing second. If it is, just go back and do it again. Just go back, start with the first thing, and then redo the second thing. Just magic doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, magic's coming from ourselves. It's coming from the way that we're feeling into what it is we're creating and the way that we're connecting. So it's okay to make mistakes. Don't let making mistakes stop you. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. If something happens, you just start again or you use your creativity to work around it. It's the progress that you're really looking at. So embrace the journey of this. It's a learning curve. You will make mistakes for sure. That's okay. If you make mistakes, that's just a way not to do something. That's all a mistake is. It's a way not to do something. And so you could come up with a whole list of what the ways of not to do something simply because you've made a lot of mistakes. And that's a good thing because you have a whole list of things that are not the way to do it. So that helps you then get closer to doing it the way you want to do it or the way that's going to work in the future. So understand that mistakes are normal and you're probably going to make mistakes. Even sometimes we make more mistakes than we do correct things when we're doing something new because it's part of how we learn. And your practice is going to evolve as you learn and as you get more confident. So if you do stuff up, just have a bit of a laugh at yourself. It's okay to laugh at yourself. Don't take life so seriously because it's not meant to be serious. And yes, connect to that part of you that says it's okay for me to stuff up and make a mistake. I have burnt holes in lino from dropping candles on the ground. I have, as I've said, I've had to go out of the circle, come back in because I've forgotten things. I have done longer spells in the wrong order. I've done all of that. So we all do funny things. And there's been times, a couple of times actually, when as even as a group of people working within a group, that we've almost caught ourselves on fire because we've been circling the circle too close to where the fire is in the middle of the circle. And, that happens too. So you've got to be very, very careful in the craft that you don't cause major catastrophes when you're working with fire, particularly. Okay. So just letting you know that I talk about the important aspects of things that you need to know, like energy work, Sabbats, working with the lunar energies, spellcrafting, and everything in that free masterclass, How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. So that will help give you an understanding of this is where I can start. I can just start learning about energy work. And then I'm going to build on that, maybe learn a bit more about the god and goddess and deity and how we work with deity, and then work next with understanding what a circle is and how to create a sacred space. And then moving on to learning what tools we might use. You can just do that bit by bit by bit. You don't have to learn it all at once. So the next thing is, and this is the last one I want to talk about before I go into the questions, is building confidence by connecting with your practice and connecting with spirit. So learning to trust your intuition, learning what your intuition is. And I just recently did a video about how you can use the tarot to help you connect with your intuition and connecting with the spiritual forces that guide your practice. That's a real strong key to that sense of connection that we're all looking for. So we're looking to connect, right? Because we feel very disconnected, particularly in the modern day. We live in a very disconnected world. We're all often in fear of our livelihood, I would say, instead of fear of our lives, even in a modern world where we have so much stuff and we're not having to go out and hunt for our food and protect ourselves from wild animals. What we've created in our culture is that we have to have money in order to be able to put a roof over our head and eat food. So that's, hunting for money or hunting for ways of being able to earn money. And then the fear of the wild animals ends up being the fear of each other. We're the wild animals because fear of losing your job, fear of being cancelled, fear of what, people are going to say or do if you upset them in some way, fears of being sued. All of these things that are going on in our modern lifestyle creates this sense that the world is a dangerous place. And so we no longer are running away from bears and lions and tigers, we're running away from each other. And that's a really sad state of affairs for humanity for us to be the wild animals that we're trying to protect ourselves from. And a lot of the time when people come to magic, they come to magic for protection because they feel somebody has cursed them, or there's a lot of negative energy around, or they're sensitive to other energies like spirit energies. They're around and they're wanting to learn how to be able to deal with all of these things. And often that's one of the reasons why people come to magic. So when you learn to connect with deity or spirit energies, it's like you have allies in the world that can help you feel like you have a connection to something beyond yourself, and also help if you need help along the way. So connecting to the god and goddess, it might be a particular god or a particular goddess, or it might be the god and goddess in general, a general sense. When I first started the craft, I didn't really resonate with a particular god or goddess. I was still learning about polytheism, and I didn't feel any one particular deity was a deity that I was particularly connecting to. We worked with Deanna, we worked with Freya, we worked with Odin, we worked with Inanna and Dumuzi, and we'd worked with Cernunnos, we'd worked with various deities in the covens, but I still didn't feel like they were the one, they were the one. So I had a connection to the goddess in general and the god in general. And I still have that connection to the goddess in general in a lot of aspects of the way that I work. And other times I will work specifically with a goddess like Hecate. I'll work a lot with Hecate. I used to work a lot with Tara, who's the green Tara and white Tara from the Buddhist pantheon. And Breed, at times I've worked with Breed. I've worked with Cernunnos at times. Papa Legba often pops up, and I mean, he's the one popping up in my life. And so I've worked with various different aspects of divinity and manifestations of divinity in those forms. But sometimes I will still be more generic when I'm working with the goddess in other times. It depends on what I'm feeling into at the time and what energy I feel that I need to connect with at the time. So don't feel like you have to pick a god or a goddess and you've got to stick with them all throughout forever, and that they're going to get offended if you don't work with them, because that's simply not the case. And work with what you feel you need to connect with at the time. But if you just want to work with the generic goddess or the generic god, that's okay to do that too. What I've learned about spirituality over years of traveling into different spiritual traditions, growing up Christian, then exploring, witchcraft, exploring Buddhism, and exploring ceremonial magic, working with angels. It all works. It all works. Whether you're working within a Buddhist context, or you're working within a Christian context, or a Wiccan context, or a traditional witchcraft context, ceremonial magic context, it works. It all works because it is all the one thing in the end, of which we're all a part of. So it doesn't matter which god or goddess you work with. If you're connected and you're feeling connected to that energy, it will work for you. So that's something not to get concerned about. Just go with where you're at the time. Okay, so I'm just going to go through some questions. Before I do, if you are wanting to learn Wicca and witchcraft, you're feeling like you're just too overwhelmed, you're not turning up for yourself every day, you've tried doing it by yourself, it just hasn't worked for you to do it by yourself, I do have a 12-month course called the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy, and that's where I actually guide you through lessons and practices on a monthly basis over that 12-month period. You can take longer, of course. It doesn't have to just be 12 months. You could take 2 years to do it or 3 years to do it. It's not limited by time in that sense, but it just gives you, this is what you can do this month. This is what you can do the next month to build on that previous month, so that you're not having to try and figure it out for yourself. And you also get to join a community of like-minded people. We get together once a month for the new moon, and during that new moon, we do a celebration of the moon. Sometimes we work with Hecate or other deities on that moon. And also we do guided meditation so that you can get to meet other people. Plus, there's a Facebook group as well where you can also liaise with other people. So that's the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. You can find that on my website, and you can also find it, the link, in the description field below the video, and you can also find it here in the chat as well. Okay. I'm just going to answer, see if there's any questions here in the chat before I go on to the common questions. Hang on, where am I? Okay. I'm really terrified of having scary experiences with bad spirits and witchcraft. What can I do to make sure that never happens? Well, the first thing to do is to just learn about the spirits, which spirits are what spirits, which ones to work with ones that aren't ones you want to work with, right? So that's something to learn from simply educating yourself by reading and also listening to other people who might work with those spirits. So it's educating yourself about what the different spirits and daemons and that are out there. A good place to work is to work with the common deities if you are wanting to work with spirits, because they've been worked with before. So, you know, spirits like deities like Breed, even Hecate. She's not nasty like people make her out to be. Uh, Freya, working with any of the, like, the Greek goddesses, Roman goddesses, and the Egyptian goddesses, like Isis, for example. Just getting to know them, what their stories are, what their background is when it comes to, well, the human version of their of them, and just going with the ones you feel you want to work with. Learning how to set up a circle is the best practice for protecting yourself. So a circle where you're getting the elements to protect the circle from any negative spirit energies or anything that are coming from outside the circle. When you set up a witchcraft circle or a Wiccan circle, you are creating that safe space for you to practice in. So that safe space could be where you're practicing ritual, magic, or just doing your daily practices if you feel you need to set up a circle. Other ways to protect yourself is to set up an energetic circle around yourself, which is what I call the circle of light. And that's something that I do teach in both the Mystery Witch School and in the 5-day daily practice course, The Ultimate Guide to Starting a Witchcraft Practice That Works. That will give you a really simple practice that you can do that's around your own energy and building on that energy that you can then project out into the space that clears your field, your energy field, so that you're not attracting any lower astral entities. So there's ways that you can certainly protect yourself. Okay. I've lost where I am up to now. Just an off-topic quick question. Which moon phase is best to do a spell for weight loss? I would say the banishing phase, which is the waning phase. So you could start at the full moon. The full moon's great for anything, really, for releasing, but also for bringing in big stuff. It's got that energy of both. So you could do one big one at the full moon to lose weight, or you could do it during when it's waning, going towards new moon. That would be the best time to do magic for weight loss, because you're trying to lose mass. Okay. Yep, the waning moon. Yes, perfection plagues me too. Yes, okay. Allow yourself to even try to stuff up, to try and get yourself over the perfection. Yes. I cast a circle every day or evening. I cleanse my space with sage, smoke, call on my spirit guides and angels and God and Goddess, and ask for protection and visualize white or gold light around me. Awesome. That's great. That's awesome. That's all you need to do. Unblock my chakras, meditate to beautiful music, and then pull a card. That is a wonderful practice. That's a really lovely practice, T Shields. What kind of activities in witchcraft would cause one to have bad experiences with malicious spirits? Uh, Playing around with Ouija boards is one way to attract negative spirits, definitely. They're not a toy, even though they're sold by gaming, I think gaming companies, and they're often you find them in the gaming area. They're not a game, but a lot of people have ended up with, conjuring up various different entities and spirits using Ouija boards without taking any precautions whatsoever or really even knowing what that is that they're doing. So that's one way to do it. Also, if you're working with the cacodemons, so if you that's sort of the spirits that are of a lower astral energy, or even some of the spirits that in modern day terms are considered demons. Some of them are nastier than others, so you probably want to stay away from those. Um, Trying to keep your energy level away from being in the emotional energy that attracts a lot of these entities. So they feed off energy. So when your energy is an unpleasant energy, like being in anger all the time, being in resentment all the time, those kinds of energies, being in fear all the time, can attract these lower entities because they're attracted to that energy. It's the energy that they're attracted to. So if you have got that kind of a situation, to do whatever you can, the shadow work to try and help with whatever's causing those emotions in the first place, is important. If you find that you are experiencing these emotions a lot, then yeah, go in and explore what it is that's causing that within yourself. Okay, there might be stuff happening outside, of course, that but that's not necessarily 100% to blame for how you're feeling, because we are 100% responsible for how we feel, even if we're reacting to something outside of ourselves. And that doesn't mean you can never feel resentment or you can never feel anger or fear. You're going to, or we all do. It's part of being human. And these emotions are there for a reason. They alert us to things that we need to be alerted to. And so we need to take notice of these emotions when they come up and what they're warning us about. But we don't wanna stay in them because they make us sick, physically sick, and they also can attract more negative stuff our way, which is not helpful. So we've got to do whatever we can through magic or through shadow work to help work with that. So that's really important. Also, wherever you live, making sure that when you're living in an environment where the people you live with are more of a stable people in that sort of sense, energetic sense as well. The friends that you keep company with, what are they like energetically? Is there a lot of chaos in your home? Is there a lot of chaos in the lives of your friends and people you hang out with? Because that can attract stuff to you as well. So it's really just looking after your energy. You don't have to be a martyr to people. Uh, you have to clean up your energy first before you can help anybody anyway. So look at those sorts of things. Shadow work helps me out a lot, Kyle. Yep, awesome. Interesting color choices for the Sabbats. Yeah, they're the ones that I came across right at the very beginning of my practice, and I've just stuck to them. But some people use different colors for the different Sabbats. Do you think if you're hypothetically were to move to the Northern Hemisphere, would you just flip the order of the Sabbats or would you observe them differently? It depends where I was in the Northern Hemisphere, of course. If I was in an environment that had the 4 seasons, obviously I'd flip them because if it's winter, it's winter. No point celebrating the summer solstice in the middle of a blizzard. That wouldn't make sense. Um, Maybe in the North Pole it might, I don't know. But, so yes, they would be flipped. But I guess it would depend. If I was actually in the round near the equator, it might change again because you don't get 4 seasons around near the equator. You really just get a wet season and dry seasons. So it would depend on where it was. Okay. Do you believe in the deities in the literal sense, or is it more in a figurative belief? I see I know there's the 2 ways there. Are they archetypes or are they actual, you know, entities? I do see them as being entities in and of themselves, because everything has that energy. But at the same time, they're also aspects of ourselves too. So they can be both archetypal within ourselves, because we too are divine. We too are gods and goddesses, and also consciousness in and of itself that's taken a form the same as we've taken a form, except the form isn't as dense as our form. So it's, you could say, both, both meanings. Hi, Gina. I'm interested in multiple of your courses. 101, the Hecate, the chakras. Which would be best to begin with? I'm really interested in the Hecate one. I need it. Okay. Whichever one you're really feeling connected to is probably the one to go with. The Hecate one is about you finding out who you truly are, and it's working really with Hecate. And there's some tarot work in there too, because there's another course that goes with that one that's working with Hecate and the tarot for that deep inquiry. So if you're feeling drawn to working with Hecate on that deep level, where you feel you really want to step more into who you are, that you're tired of hiding, you're tired of pushing yourself down all the time because you're too afraid to be who you truly are, then yes, go with the Hecate one. If you're wanting to learn witchcraft in general, so you're wanting to learn more about energy work and you're wanting to learn about the Sabbats, create circles and all of those sorts of things, then the 101 is the place to be. The Wheels of Empowerment, the chakra one, is a shadow work one where you're working with different beliefs that are at each chakra level. So it really just depends where you're at the moment. And if you want to, if you sort of aren't sure, you can always book a free clarity session with me. There's a link in the description field below the video. You can also find it on my website, and we'll just get over Zoom for 15 minutes and have a chat, and might help you get more clear about where you are and what you want to do. Okay, or just email me and I'll send you the link. Okay. And my email is sandra@mysterywitchschool.com. Okay. Hi, Gina. Again, I'm starting a book today too. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for answering questions. Not a problem. Where I used to live, we had 2 seasons, winter and construction. All right. Okay, that sounds interesting. Okay, let's look at a couple of questions before we go. A common question: how do I know if I'm doing a spell or ritual correctly? Okay. The only way you're going to know if it's correct is what the results are. Did it work? What did you feel? There isn't necessarily, there is correct way to do things, as in if you're doing magic, then you do need to do magic in the way that's going to make it work. Doing it correctly might mean following the ritual procedure to the T. When it comes to magic, you won't know until you get the result, or if you don't get the result. If the magic isn't working, if you're not getting the result, or you're not getting a sense that the result is happening, because some magic is going to take longer to happen than other magic is. It depends on what needs to happen in order for it to fulfill. Other people, situations have to line up with you, and so that sometimes can take time. If you're looking for a house, for example, and you're very specific about the type of house you want, then it could take a while for that house to come up, to come up on the market, whether that's for rent or whether that's to sell. So you have to allow time for things to happen at the right time, where things are all lined up, and that can take time. So I don't like to necessarily put a time limit on magic. I know some people do, but I personally find that if I put a time limit on it, it tends to not work out so well. I think it's because I tend to get too attached then to the result. Whereas if I let the time limit be more broad or more in flow, then it's easier for me to surrender to the result. So that's just the way that I work. Other people like to have time limits on their magic. So how you feel at the end of it can help. Sometimes you might have done a spell totally correctly, and you might have even felt some power in there, and for some reason it just doesn't seem to produce what you wanted it to produce. Other times you might have done a spell on the fly, and you've just, thrown it together, you've done it really fast, and you weren't really totally you didn't spend time really getting into a moment or anything or feeling, and then bang, it happens straight away. It's very hard to determine, but it's the result that you're looking for. What tools do I really need to get started? The tool you need to get started is your clarity about what it is that you want, your brain. You need your brain to get started. That's the only thing you need to get started, is to understand what it is that you want, to be able to put yourself in the end result in your imagination so that you feel like it's happening. And that's the only tool you need. If you want to then add tools to that, the candles are great to have. I know not everybody can have candles where they live. So you could even use the battery candles if you're just using them to create atmosphere. You can use herbs, which you can get from the supermarket, dried herbs. You don't necessarily have to have crystals. I mean, they're wonderful to have, but they cost a lot more money than herbs do. So you might not want to use those for a while. But candles, herbs are the best place to start. They're probably the most economical place to start when it comes to tools. If you're wanting to do more traditional circle casting, that's more within that sort of Wiccan witchcraft tradition, you probably would like to get your hands on a wand and an athame and a cup and a pentacle, but you don't need those things. When I first started out, I went to secondhand shops and got things, and I made up my own athame. I still have my ceramic cup that I bought back then, and even though I've got better ones, I still use that one for ritual. The better one's actually there for show. I used a letter opener for an athame when I joined the coven, until it took me a long, long time to get a really good athame. It took probably a couple of decades before I actually got a nice one. And the pentacle I use to this day is just actually a coaster. That's a pentagram coaster. That's a ceramic coaster. So your tools don't have to be really, really expensive things that you've got to buy from Etsy and that, unless you really want them. They're beautiful to have, and of course, when you've got tools that are beautiful and you love looking at them, of course, you're gonna love using them, and they're going to become more powerful on a psychological level, which does make them more powerful. But you don't need to be having these elaborate tools to make the craft work, because you're the magic. You're the one putting the energy and that out there. So you don't your only tool really is your imagination. That's the main thing you need, your imagination. Take that with you wherever you go when it comes to doing your magic. The next one, building a daily practice without it taking hours. I've talked about that today. Just simply quick shielding, circle of light, ask the God and Goddess to be with you, and it's just simply a matter of Mother Goddess, Father God, or however you want to refer to them. Please be with me today. I invite you into my sacred space. Do 5 minutes of meditation, pull a tarot card, set an intention. It doesn't have to take long. Okay, you don't have to create a full circle every day unless you really like doing that and you've got the time to do that. What if I don't feel anything when I do magic or meditate? You don't have to feel anything to meditate. Meditation is really just about calming. Well, there's different types of meditation, so it depends on what type of meditation you're doing. You can do meditations where you're trying to get into the feeling of loving kindness. So if you're doing metta meditation, that's what you're trying to get into the feeling of, feeling loving kindness. If you're doing mindfulness meditation, you're just trying to be aware of what's happening, just being aware of everything and not becoming attached to anything. So there won't necessarily be a feeling there other than the feeling of probably calm and peace. It's not an exciting feeling, meditation. When it comes to magic, use your imagination to create the feeling. Don't try to create the feeling. Go into your imagination and imagine the result. and allow the feeling to just come from the imagination. When you're imagining yourself experiencing the result of your magic, immerse yourself in that, because the feeling will come from that, because that's what happens. We have emotional reactions to our imagination. When we're watching a movie, we have an emotional reaction to what's going on in that movie. Even when we know the movie's not real, we still talk to the television, get upset. If you watch sport, people yell at the television, they yell at the team, even though the team can't hear you, obviously. We have emotional reactions to these things, and that's what happens in our imagination when we're doing magic. We have an emotional reaction to that, and it might not be intense like it is when you're yelling at the sporting team. It probably won't be as intense as that. It might be very subtle. You might not notice it at all. But if you're using your imagination and you're in the imagination doing what you would be doing given the result and experiencing the result, you are going to have an emotional reaction, and just trust that you're having an emotional reaction, and then that's what helps bring the result to you. Your imagination is your most powerful tool. Okay, I'm just going to go back to comments here. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Fear of backfiring spells and overcomplicated spells have been stumbling blocks. Also, not knowing 100% what it is that I want. Yeah, spend time looking at what it is that you want. What do you truly, truly want? If you're doing magic for something, why are you doing it? You might not necessarily want anything in the moment. We don't necessarily want everything every day. But what sort of life would you like to live? Where would you like to live? What would you like to be doing in your life? If you could have the perfect day, what would you be doing in your day? Think along those lines if you're not sure of what it is that you want. Spells don't backfire. They just usually don't work. Um, uh, that's probably more likely what happens. They would only backfire if in your imagination you're imagining what you don't want rather than what you do want. So it's important to imagine what you do want, not what you don't want. So if you're not sure what you want, make a whole list of the things you don't want. Okay, that's the first place to start. What don't I want? And then look at the opposite of that. What's the opposite of those things? If you don't want that, then what do you want instead? How would you replace that? So if it's a house, for example, you don't like where you're living, okay? Well, where would you like to live? What don't you like about where you're living? Okay, well, what would you like to change about that? And write these things down so you can get more clear about what it is that you actually do want. Okay, and going to get the little course, but it's really included in the main course. Yes, so the ultimate guide to starting a Wiccan practice that works, which is the mini course to start a daily practice, is free with the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy course. So it's free with that. Plus, also with the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy, you also get another free course called Witch's Guide to Magic. So that's a course, it's a 5-module course just on magic, simple magic, and how to get that magic to work. So there's 3 courses within the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. There's the main one, and then there's the 2 other courses that you get with that. So you get a lot for that Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. Okay, clear quartz works for all things. Absolutely, it's like a white candle. If you don't have any other colors, just use a white candle. Use a clear quartz. You can program it for pretty much most things. Hi, Shema. Egypt. You're from Egypt. Awesome. I used to yell at the radio till I realized they were riling us up on purpose, Gina. Okay, yeah, they probably do that. Can we do magic to get married to a specific guy? Not recommended. Um, Now, there's lots of different reasons for that. Some people would say it's not ethical to try and force somebody to marry you because it's against their will. The real common sense aspect to that is that you want somebody to marry you because they want to marry you. Okay, you want to be um, the one that they want, not making them want you, because then you're not getting the genuine, authentic love that you deserve. and that's the main reason not to do it. Uh, it's it's um, it's really about looking after yourself and making sure that the person that is in your life, particularly if you're getting married, is the right person for you, and you can't force that on another person and that work out in the long term because they really have to be the one who wants you. And that's just more the psychology of relationships. It's not even considering the ethical aspect. It's just looking at being more trusting in your ability to be loved by someone, and if that person isn't the right person, then there's somebody else who will be. So that's my advice there, is to value yourself beyond having to do magic to make somebody marry you or make someone love you. Yeah, go beyond feeling your go beyond the desperation, I guess is what I'm saying. Value yourself more than that. Uh, and that's more how I like to communicate it rather than talk about ethics because, everybody's got their own ethics and people don't, get upset about, people being judgy and all that sort of thing. I'm trying to look at it more from a common sense perspective here, that you want to value yourself. And so you want to make sure that person is you want to make sure they're chasing you. Okay. Make sure they're chasing you. You're not chasing them because then when you can tell then that they're really, really interested when they're the ones chasing you. So, okay. So that was the last questions. So yes, all the links are in the description field below the video. My website is mysterywitchschool.com. If you have any questions about anything like the courses or what I do, my email is sandra@mysterywitchschool.com. There's also a contact form on my website too. If you're confused about what courses to do, you can either email me or just say, hey, look, I think I need to have a chat with you to find out what the best course of action is for me, and we can have a clarity session for 15 minutes and help you get clear about which course might work for you. So all of that's available on my website, mysterywitchschool.com. Okay, last comment is I did it for a lover back in the 80s. It was amazing physically, and he got me hooked on crack. So yeah, don't do that. It's bad magic. Yes, there's often negative outcomes that come from doing that kind of magic because that person just is probably not the right person at the end of the day. Okay. So I will see you next week. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful new moon that's coming up tomorrow. And we'll see you next week.